This content is for informational purposes only. You should not construe any such information or other material as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. Nothing contained on here constitutes a solicitation, recommendation, endorsement, or offer by Draper Goren Holm or any third-party service provider to buy or sell any securities or other financial instruments whatsoever.
Hey everyone, it is me. We are here. Joseph is here too. Say hi, Joseph.
Hey, what's up?
Boom, boom, boom. We're recording.
Good morning, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
I am recording this on the computer now.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, everyone. Hey, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Boom. All right. It says it's recording. Boom, 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 boom. I am apparently recording.
The entire bottle of control. They're all exactly the same.
Crypto art, and then what it really is an NFT.
Wow.
Eddie wants to slap the bag.
So this is the next best thing.
DeFi is going to be a bubble.
It's provably scarce.
With Mad Dog.
Crypto, gold, and silver.
Transparent substance.
Take my money, start a war with it.
Without further ado,
Cheers to you, brother.
Get shit done. Because the system has to collapse before that.
Cheers. I feel much better now.
Cheers.
wow, that was heavy.
Boom. Welcome to Blockchain and Booze number 156. And I'll let you guys into behind the curtain a little bit. I screwed up on scheduling and my communication with the team, and we flip-flopped a couple things. But what's really awesome about 156 is that it marks 3 years. So Toby, this is pretty exciting, but this episode is also doubling up for celebrating 3 years of never missing a week on Blockchain and Booze. So we started during quarantine and thought, let's get together, have a drink, hang out with our friends, thinking it might last 2-3 weeks, and then we'll get back to business. And here we are 3 years later, never stopping. And I think that's pretty awesome. Welcome, Toby, to Blockchain and Booze. Let me tell everyone else, if you're watching on one of the streams everywhere, thank you, Blue. And if you're watching on one of the streams, like on LinkedIn or on YouTube or on the Lunar Crush Twitter feed, you can keep watching there. You could post comments and things, and I'll see them, and it's pretty fun. Or if you'd like, you can also hop into, you go to Blockchain and Booze or just blockchainbooze.io. It'll redirect you to the DGH events site, and you can also chat with the community back there. And when we're done in about an hour, you'll be able to turn on your camera, hang with the community if you'd like. And what's cool about that is over the years, we've actually met a ton of amazing entrepreneurs backstage there, and invested in some companies we met back there. Some founders have met each other and started companies. And so it's really, really fun. So go back there if you'd like, but welcome, Toby. I'm trying to remember, were you on with the Lunar Crew one of the times where we did I think we had a few members of the team on, or is this your first time officially on Blockchain and Booze?
This is my first time. I didn't know it was your 3-year anniversary. Yeah. I feel very honored.
So John's in the chat. I said, "Go Toby, go." So I'm gonna cheers to your first time here.
Yeah, we'll probably need to pour myself one too.
All right, let's pour yourself something. I like it. What's funny is I immediately took cheers. I took the John, aka Sailor Gary from Nifty Spirits, sent me a few bottles of board vodka and a bunch of premium bottles. But I immediately took my board vodka bottle, took like 1 million pictures of them, and then bubble wrapped them and put them in a good spot so they wouldn't get messed up, because I was so worried, which is really funny because now every single episode of Blockchain and Booze, I want to show it and do it. But we got to send you some board vodka too. But Toby, give us your background and how you got into the space. We want to talk today. Everybody knows everybody knows that I am a big Lunar Crush fanboy, and I talk about Lunar Crush pretty much every episode. And not just because you guys stream this, but because I'm an investor and a super user. And I used to be able to say I'm a level 5 user, which made me feel really good because 5 sounds better than, 1, I guess, or whatever. But now I'm a what is it? Pro user.
Pro user. That's right.
But Pro is pretty awesome too, so I'll take it. But give everyone your background, how you got to the space and how you got here, and then we'll jump into Lunar Crush and data and research and stuff.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, I'm Toby. I'm the strategist here at Lunar Crush. We do all things Web3 and DeFi, anything with data. I handle as well. I've got kind of a weird start to the industry. I come from commercial real estate, and I was introduced to blockchain back in 2016, 2017. Actually, my sister's ex-boyfriend introduced it to me. He was one of the founders of the Columbia Blockchain Club. So at first, I just kind of saw the dollar signs, and as I look more into it, you kind of see like, okay, there's some smart people here. There's money coming in, it must be for a reason. So I started looking more into it. I started understanding, okay, it's a decentralized value transfer at first. And I was like, okay, you know what? It's crazier than that. It's a centralized computation. I got my start with Ethereum, luckily, and then kind of spread out to like Bitcoin and all the other coins. So at the time I was just, I couldn't get enough of it. I was just reading everything I could on it, and eventually decided to make the switch. And I was lucky enough to meet Joe and John and get my start at Lunar Crush. They put me on. I've been enjoying it ever since, and it's been a wild ride.
It's wild, like thinking about like people's onboarding into crypto, because I think if really, really early days, right? Like, between Bitcoin's launch and probably like 2015, there was oh my God, that thing that was worth 5 cents a year ago is now worth 50 cents or $2 or, $100 all of a sudden, or $500 or $1,000, right? There was the money thing, but it wasn't quite as amplified until like the 2016, 17, like basically post Ethereum. Then there was a lot more of that talk, especially publicly. But whatever brought, like, I learned about it back in those days, but in my mind, it was, and maybe it was just the mindset that I was in, I just looked at it as like this freedom thing, right? I was like, oh, our money in the United States is pretty much digital. This is more for people in other countries, for when bombs are being dropped, when they have to flee with it, and I talked about it a lot, like as a freedom thing, and I learned about it. But I never thought I should buy a bunch of Bitcoin because it's going to go up in value. And now I'm mad at myself for not having that mindset. But so many people at a certain point went, oh my gosh, I need to pay attention to this thing. Free money is falling from the sky, or you get that feeling. But for me, the first time I kind of went in a room where all crypto people, my mind was just blown at how incredibly smart everyone was. Like, I felt like, and I still feel this way in the room with all crypto people, but I felt like the biggest idiot, right? Like, I was like, and every time, especially at the beginning, I wonder if you had this kind of feeling, not that you felt stupid, because I have a sense that you're much smarter than I am, but I have this feeling of like, every time I feel like I've like, fully understood something in our space, especially when you really dive into the nerdy, nitty gritty. Every time I feel like something happens, I realize, oh, I didn't know what I was talking about. Like, it's like this peeling an onion, but like endless.
Yeah, no, I honestly, I still feel stupid most days. I remember the first time I read the Ethereum white paper, I had to read it like 3-4 times, and I was like highlighting and making notes. I'm like, I don't get some of, I don't get a lot of this. And I'd read it the next day. I'm like, little by little. And like the crazy thing with crypto, I think, is
I do that with Vitalik's tweets.
Oh my God. Or his interviews. And you're just like what is he talking about? I think for every one thing you learn in crypto, you learn about 5 other things that you had no idea about. You're just uncovering layers of like narratives and uncovering, like mental scaffolding that you just didn't have beforehand. And it kind of makes you, it made me feel dumb for a lot of the time, but also like made me hungrier to find out more. So.
Yeah, there is like that moment though where somebody asks you a question like that's not exactly in the space, and they go like, well, what about this versus this, or like, what is it, what does proof of stake mean? And then you like answer them and you're like, wow,
yeah,
that's pretty good, like the first few times that happens, you're like, hey, I really know this stuff.
Yeah, totally.
That's pretty great too. So I think it's just interesting. So you came into Lunar Crush. Now you work strategy. I know there's some exciting new products and opportunities for people to check into that live data that you guys make available. But before we even jump into that, we have there's a few news items today, right? We have Fed. And we also have Coinbase. I don't know. Would love to get your thoughts on the Fed. They raised rates, right? They raised it by a 0.25%.
Yeah, 0.25%. Yeah. I mean, a lot of stuff going on today. I think the 25 bips was probably a good move given all the stuff that happened in the last week with all the bank collapses and everything like that, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, I think they're still trying to stem inflation, but they don't want to exacerbate like a liquidity problem that's fairly present for smaller mid-sized banks right now. So.
There was a little, so looking at it from the Ben just said Fed is wild, and but looking at it from the crypto standpoint, raising interest rates. I mean, we saw today Bitcoin take a little dip for a moment. It's still a little lower than it was, but it's gone up so much in the last week. It's not much, but it's down 3% today. Mm-hmm. You think that's related to the rates? You think that's just a correction because it went up so much in a short period of time? What do you think?
I'm no market guru. If I was, I'd be a bajillionaire. But I mean, my intuition has probably had to do a little bit of both. I think this last week, I was watching like a Glassnode report a couple of days ago. I think it was like the biggest 1 day or 1 week increase in Bitcoin in like a few years. Like pretty crazy. I think there's like the inflation hedge narrative, which you kind of saw back in 2019 when like the yield curve inverted and all that. But yeah, I mean 3%. At this point, like we've been in the game so long, 3% is probably just like.
Well, we also look. I just zoomed out. I'm looking at the Lunar Crush app. So when I look down, I'm not like tweeting, although sometimes that happens. But like I'm looking at the Lunar Crush app at the. It's blurry because of the thing, but everybody, open up your Lunar Crush app. We could do this together, right? Go to the BTC page and just go 3 months and then look at that and laugh, right? We're up 62% in 3 months, right? So 3% is not insane, right? We're up 44% in 6 months, but then once we go a year, we should be down, right? So a year we're down. But right, like a 3% day is not a big deal in crypto. In most stocks and stuff, it's it's deal. But yeah. But speaking of stocks, right? Well, actually, we want to talk about timely. I was about to say that the bank stuff isn't as timely as like the Coinbase news, but the bank stuff is like a week old also. Yeah. Dude, the world is on fire.
One thing after the other.
That's crypto, right? To think about something that's like literally happening right now, but like the peak of it, or at least the biggest news cycle part of it, was like a week ago. Thinking about that as like it's old news, that is degen crypto in a nutshell. But what do you think? Did you hear much? I haven't talked to many people yet about the Coinbase news. They got a, what is it called? A Wells
notice. Yeah.
A Wells notice. Right. Basically, I wonder, from what I saw on the reporting, did they get any specifics, or is it the government just discloses that they got their notice? But I wonder, like, what specifics Coinbase actually got, and if any of that detail is leaked yet, because all we know as the public, as far as I know, and you tell me if you know anything different, is they received a notice that I think they have like 2 weeks to respond to it internally or something. And then in 2 weeks, they're going to get some kind of action against them. I don't know if that's a fine. I don't know if that's a, turn off crypto trading. What exactly that means.
It's the news broke pretty recently. I haven't had a chance to like fully dig into it, but I think it's probably like the same, SEC kind of case coming after either like staking or some sort of product like that, or like, I mean, hopefully not, like, going out against selling some of these crypto assets that maybe they want to classify as like a security per se. But I think really what this is like they're giving them notice that they're going to make a case against them, and then they have a certain period of time, like 21 days or something, or a month or whatever, to like basically make the case for why they shouldn't get sued. But I think historically speaking, I think like 70 or 80% of the time they get sued anyway. So it's not like a big chance that they're not going to,
It's also like such BS, because as the consumers, right, we get to we see these things and then we get to point at other things. And I know it's like one shouldn't deal with the other. It's like going like, why are you catching me for speeding when that guy is, speeding more or doing whatever. But at the same time, I mean, how pissed would you be if you're like the most careful crypto exchange there is, and don't even look at other people in the crypto space, right? I'm not saying like look at the crypto space, but like just point at Wells Fargo or something, right? It's called the Wells notice, so that's probably why I thought Wells Fargo. But like Wells Fargo pays, has historically paid more in penalties probably in the last like 10 years for defrauding their customers than the whole market cap of the crypto space combined, right? So it's like, but the government's gonna spend their time regulating the shit out of us, or at least fighting us. It seems nuts.
Yeah, I think it's just posturing at this point. They're just trying to like find the bad kid in the class and put him in the corner and be like, look, don't be bad. It is. I think it's BS. But I think it just comes from like regulation. Regulatory. There's no clarity. And so they're just trying to like posture now so that they can figure something out later. And I think that's not like the right approach. But
I mean, it's clearly can't be the right approach, and something that like really bothers me, and we'll go into the Lunar Crush product stuff that I want to talk about too. But the thing that's nutty to me is we have this banking crisis right now, and it's very, very, there's external things that have created the situation we're in now, right? Like you could talk about COVID, you could talk about the world in general and the whole economic system and whatever. But like the government has done a pretty crappy job of trying to avoid crisis by like band-aiding it and amplifying the crisis every single time. Like they pick the route that is very politically motivated in the very, very short term, and probably exacerbated it, right? And what drives me really nuts and is this idea that the government is, I think the people that are currently in power, majority wise, right, like the Democrats are mostly in power right now, and I would probably agree with 99% of the social views of all of the Democratic people that are elected. And I would, don't have a particular party affiliation, but on almost all social views and all, at least the publicly social views that they say they have, I agree with most of them, right? But then people like Elizabeth Warren go out there, and people like Brad Sherman go out there and say the dumbest shit that makes no sense whatsoever. And not only that, like Elizabeth Warren is cheering on and basically like egging on the collapse of medium-sized and small banks like acting as if that's a win for her in some kind of weird moral cause, like, hey, they did the wrong thing. For one, the government is what's putting them out of business. But two, she's basically cheering on the collapse of businesses in this country that ultimately not only employ people, but also their clients employ a huge percentage of the people. And what happens when they collapse? All of the power that they have goes to JP Morgan or goes to maybe one of the other few banks, but mostly JP Morgan, right? And if you are truly a champion of the people, you want to take as much power away from JP Morgan and the largest banks in the world as possible. And so it's fucking mind-blowing that the person who says they're there to champion the people's cause is cheering on these.
Yeah, I think it's mind-blowing to people like us who like have some sort of grasp on like the, you know, how it all works. But like when at face value, like, you know, when you're on Twitter, when you're on Instagram, whatever, you only catch snippets of something. There's only a certain amount of time to like deliver an information or a message. So she's just going after, I think, just like low-hanging fruit, trading votes for longevity. And it's very sad. It's exactly
I mean, it's probably really smart, because we've learned that that's how it works. Like, we've learned that all you have to do is not actually do what's right. Just say what you think the people that are your constituents want, and then do whatever the fuck you want.
It's smart from their point of view, but it's completely fucked if you're like.
No, it's completely fucked. I'm not saying it to give them credit. It's smart, like Trump is smart. You can say I'm in every person. I'm this person. I'm on your side. I'm whatever. But I'm going to do what the highest bidder pays me to do, right? And then you get both, right? Like, you get the person who pays you, and you get the people to vote for you because you said you're on their team. Yeah. You didn't do a single fucking thing to help them, but bro, I'm on your team, so come on, vote for me. All right, like hey, we're wearing the same color shirt.
Totally. It's just an easy target, you know. It's an easy target. You see banks collapse, you see other people get rich or whatever. You just point at them and like, hey, I'm fine for you.
It's mind blowing, and it's really unfair, because at the end of the day, the people who are the most affected by all of this stuff on a day-to-day basis are the people who aren't really participants in any of this, right? Mm-hmm. Like, the people who are affected the most are the people who have no control over it. And it's all this really dumb political, scheming game. And that's why we love crypto, right? Because if you can participate in this world, regardless of if you're an accredited investor or you were born in a certain country, or you were born in a certain class, or you're born a certain skin color, anyone can participate no matter what. And that's what's really exciting. I hope that,
totally,
decentralization continues to work and it doesn't get concentrated, and we can keep doing this. But going into into data, right? I think we wanted to talk a little bit about, institutional grade research, and the banks are a good segue into it, because we actually saw, on Lunar Crush, when SVB collapsed, we saw something like 72 hours before the bank run. We saw a huge spike in social on Lunar Crush. So I know you guys are working on some things there, but I'd love to talk to you about kind of how that works, because I think there's a huge opportunity for, separately from, there's one side of it where the consumers, right, can really, they can see this, right? And I can find out, holy crap, everybody's talking about First Republic Bank, they're the next ones, or whatever. And in these situations, you see where traders have some really interesting data, but internally, also separately from the traders, is, let's say I work at SVB, let's say I'm in the investor relations department, or I'm a part of that team, to know, the floodgates are coming, or something is happening. before anyone else does. It's really crazy important. So, how are you guys seeing that there?
Yeah, no, SVB is a great example. And like you said, there's a trader investor perspective, like on the retail side, but where we saw a lot of the value is also from the bank side as well. Like this, if you kind of like look into some news articles, this has been like the first social media fueled bank run. Like in all honesty, if everybody didn't take out their deposits, they'd probably be okay, right? They had enough liquidity, albeit it wasn't, they had some duration risk and what they were holding, et cetera. But if everybody kind of kept their heads on straight and left their deposits in there, probably would have been okay, right?
Yeah.
But what happened was, like some news started to spread, a narrative formed, it became sort of a negative narrative. And because of that, it kind of, so some people started talking, hey, then it becomes like a prisoner's dilemma at that point. It's just, now you're just sitting on a payoff matrix. And it's like, look, I can either hold and be okay, or I can just take my money out just to be safe. And when one person cheats, or when one person takes their money out, it's in everybody's best interest to take their money out. So from the bank's perspective, and we saw this, a day or two, like even before like the price dropped, the people were already talking about how, some of their holdings were like in, 10-year treasury bonds or whatever. And now they have unrealized losses. They came out with the announcement that they were going to shuffle that around, and they're going to raise a little bit of money to kind of, get a better rate on some of their deposit holdings. And that kind of just spread like wildfire on Twitter, right? Because it became something that was supposed to be a little bit of financial restructuring to make it better for the depositors, but that's not how it was taken. And
it was supposed to be done privately, right? And what happened, as far as I understood, part of like what seeded it was that a lot of VCs who are on the board of SVB or on advisory boards, or that were being shopped certain opportunities to invest in a SVB, we're told, don't worry about it. We got deposits covered. There's nothing to worry about, but we're raising money because of those bonds that you're talking about. They went, oh yeah, sure, nothing to worry about. And then they instantly went, I need to cover my ass, and started calling all their portfolio companies to move your money away from SVB just in case. And then they're the ones at the top of the hill throwing the snowball to start the thing.
Totally. But I think if SVB had caught that early and was able to manage that narrative and was able to, spin it in a different light and kind of like meet the customers where they are, I think it could have been a different story, especially if, they talk to the VCs or whatever, because, it's like playing telephone, like, and once the message like gets to the 10th person, it's a totally different message, right? It becomes, hey, we're raising money. We're going to, reshuffle our portfolio to make it better, to like, oh fuck, like, the bank's in trouble and everybody's got to get out. And it's like,
hey, we're raising money to cover these bonds that the government is this and whatever. By the third call, it's, hey, they're upside down on these investments. By the sixth call, they're out of money.
Yeah.
By the 10th call, they're going out of business.
It didn't help that this all got put out to retail too. So all the, everybody's, it becomes like an exponential spread. It's literally viral, where like the more people that know, the faster it spreads. And on top of that, it's like, you're compounding social proof, right? Like it's all the people that you follow, all the people that you've signaled interest in, or like some sort of vote of confidence in. And so like when one of your friends tells you, it's kind of news, right? When the second friend tells you, now it's like real, third person, so on. And it's like, it was just kind of, maybe it could have been done a little bit earlier and better, I think. So
yeah, I 100%. They really screwed that up, and I don't want to give them credit, but like a bit of an excuse is, this has never happened, right? Like there hasn't been like you said, this is the first time it was a social media fueled bank run. And this is the opposite. This is like what's the rule? the equal and opposite reaction, right? This is the equal and opposite reaction to the meme, right? The memes are money kind of argument, right? So if you can say memes are money, and the meme is that, you know, Dogecoin is a real currency, and you can create value for something so stupid overnight because enough people believe in it. This is the equal and opposite reaction to that, which is enough people go, we're fucked, and we're fucked, right? Like enough people go, SVB ain't worth shit, and it's over, right? It's
once
that's
a
the world we live
perspective
in now.
becomes ubiquitous, it becomes a truth, basically, right? Because your perception is your reality, and so it's the same for everybody else. So, you know, once everybody's saying it, you know, it's just like Bayes' theorem.
Look,
you know,
and we, you know, think about it, right? I think, I'm trying to remember 2008, last financial crisis. Right before it, it's kind of funny. Right before the last financial crisis, I actually worked at Countrywide. I was in the systems architecture group. I was like I was like one step above an intern, right? And I was just low man on the totem pole, working for the head of systems architecture at one of their offices. And then I got a job at MySpace. And so I think I was at MySpace during the financial crisis, which is kind of fun because that was like kind of the creation of social media as we know it today. Did
you ever meet Tom?
What was that?
Did you ever meet Tom?
Yeah, I met him a couple of times. Like I shared an elevator with him, like gave him a high five kind of thing, but I didn't know him. It was just kind of fun. It was kind of neat. What was crazy though, going just into it, is like exactly like you would think it would have been in the office and being there. It kind of was, right? Like I would sneak out early because I was going to school at night. I made this deal with the devil that I was going to finish college at night when I started the job there, because I was offered a job there. And I was like, you know, when I worked at Countrywide, I was a little more than, I was like almost full-time, but not full-time, so I could go to school. And then when I got the job there, I had to be full-time to get the job. And so I started going to school at night, and I wanted to finish school. For some dumb reason, I probably shouldn't have, but because I should have hung out with the people at MySpace. Like it would have been a better probably ROI. But I would leave the office early and I'd come back the next day, and people would be like, "Hey, bro, did you hear what happened?" They're like, "No, what happened?" They're like, "Mark got fired." And you're like, "What happened?" They're like, "Oh, we were working really late, and Chris ordered a keg of beer from the whatever. Mark drank way too much, threw the furniture in the fountain, and he got fired this morning." And I was like, "Wait, what?" Like stuff like that happened almost every day. And then you'd be sitting there and like Tony Hawk would skateboard through the office, or like the WWF wrestler would run through the office holding their like, you know, the heavyweight belt over their head. Like shit like that was happening just on an everyday basis. Like an episode of Silicon Valley or some stupid thing like that. Like that was literally just every day there. But going back to the original topic of the financial crisis, I don't know if it had any part. It hadn't, like people separated that part of their lives. Like people didn't talk about money back then online social media stuff. You might have mentioned some of it, like to post an article and maybe share a political view, but nobody did that, right? Mm-hmm. But cut to today, you know, really COVID accelerated it like crazy, but we saw Wall Street Bets, and we saw what's going on there. And it probably is a combination of social media, stock twits kind of started it, Robinhood, COVID, and you know, Wall Street Bets, and boom, like all of a sudden, like
charts are being posted every day. You're seeing everybody's, you know, there's like whatever lost porn, there's like all the people that,
and you know, Elon Musk calling, like I don't remember what it was like, you know, Tesla stock like 420.69 or some stupid thing like that, getting a slap on the wrist by the SEC for making a price call that was obviously a joke on the internet. But like all of a sudden, you know, like I was saying, memes are money, right? Like that, like you can say something stupid, like Elon Musk could joke that the logo of Twitter is going to be changed to the Dogecoin, you know, to the Dogecoin logo, and it's clearly and obviously a joke, and that could create $100 million in value like that day, right? So here we are, and now the consequences of it is I don't know if consequence is the right word, but the product of that is that public companies, especially, just like, cryptocurrencies and communities, have to manage their shit. Like, they have to manage the narrative, and they have to understand what's going on. And going back to what we were saying, right? If somebody was watching Lunar Crush and understood the real-time social metrics that are going on, they could have at worst had a warning and been able to manage the public narrative. At best, they could have slowed things down, turned things around, and changed it. And that's in a crisis mode. But what happens, like, or go ahead. You can.
No. I was just agreeing with you. Yeah, I think that they need to meet them, in today's world on the medium that their customers are. As the millennials and Gen Zs, that cohort moves up. These are your investors, right? These are your people running companies now. These are the people making stuff happen, and they're all sitting on social media. Like from 08, 09, like Twitter wasn't that big. It was still kind of like in its infancy. Now it's like full blown, exactly like me.
I have a deck. I have a deck from my previous company. We built online investment technology, but it was kind of the early days of crowdfunding, and we had built Facebook and MySpace integrations for the product. And I had a slide in the deck that I've got to find. It's from 2008, 2009 or so, if I remember correctly, maybe 2010, but I think even earlier. And the deck had, it showed MySpace, and it had a big pie, it was a bar chart. Yeah. It showed MySpace having like all the users, right? And then it showed like Facebook down below. And then it actually included a thing called Open Social, which you're probably too young to really know. But there was this thing. It was like a consortium that included Google and Friendster and Bebo and MySpace. It was like this product for doing cross-platform stuff where you could connect it. But it had this slide on it, and then it had really small. It had Twitter. Like, was way smaller than all three of those things. And it said like, we're keeping an eye on Twitter for an opportunity, but like we added like a share your campaign on Twitter button just because there was enough users to be meaningful, but it was like nothing back then. So if you think about that, it's,
it's totally like it's evolved so in such a crazy way. Like if you think about it, not just for information spread, but translating information into like action or organized action. And like, I mean, look, this was like, I don't know how it was, 2014. Like, remember the Arab Spring? Like, people were like Facebook, like on social media, like literally organizing protests and organizing a revolution. And that was like, almost 10 years ago, if you think about it.
That was one of the first. Yeah, then that was one of the first times where, I don't know if you guys remember this, but Bitcoin was trading in Iran for like, I think it was 3 or 4x. What it was trading on other exchanges for, because people were that desperate to get a hold of Bitcoin just in case the government came in and took their. And I remember discussing that publicly at events and things and online and doing. I used to do the tech segment on Good Morning San Diego because my friend was a producer there. And I remember talking about things like that on there, but never myself thinking it was a good idea to buy Bitcoin because, again, Bitcoin was for revolutions, right? And we're in the United States, so that. But you look at that, right, and you go like, okay, social media is so incredibly important right now for you can look at it from a freedom standpoint, right? Like you can organize against your government or against bad actors or just for whatever you want to organize for online. And you can find your community online, which I think is the biggest, most exciting part of social media from the beginning. But now, I get that we can get those social insights and we can get trading. We can get the alpha, right, for trading. But we also get, we can also get some really important data if you're internal at a company, right? Like if you're, or if you're interested in, are you short something? Are you long something? Are you, and I don't necessarily even mean from an investment standpoint, but from a community standpoint too. There's just so much that can be disseminated and learned and understand through there.
Yeah. No, whereas I think social media kind of allowed for like information connection where you could like meet people and like these weird groups that maybe like, that, 1,000 miles away that have your same interest that you never would have met like in your small town or whatever. I think crypto is kind of the same thing where it adds on top of that, where it's not just information connection, but it's like value connection. So now you can actually move value and like funds to support those communities or to support those, connections that you've made. Like if you kind of like read like the network state from like Balaji, Balaji right now with his $1 million bet, I don't know, but like he makes some good points in like being able to like, use crypto and to use like, social media to kind of like create your own, create your own state basically.
I wrote and I'll go down this rabbit hole for a moment, because when you talk about creating another state, when you talk about sort of what a state is and what we are, right? Like, what the heck? Oh, getting I have to decline a WhatsApp call from my dad. Doesn't he know we're on Blockchain and Booze? I know he follows us on Facebook. He should be watching this. Every once in a while, my mom will say hi in the comments, and I bring the comment up. That's awesome. Really funny. So we joke about it, but we talked about the United States of America back in the day, or even you go back to World War II, and people talk about the Union, the Allies, right? They talk about the Union Allies versus Axis and stuff like that. We talk about the United States as a union. We're the United States of America. And you go back to the Great Depression, and we talk about, my dad's not taking no for an answer. Do you hear that sound every time? Like,
yeah.
Oh, okay. So I'm not just like sounding like an insane person. We talk about unions, and during the Great Depression, unions were incredibly important, right? Like, the 40-hour work week didn't exist, and no benefits existed, and people were treated like complete trash, and they were way more important than they are today in some respects. And I think they're incredibly important today, but a lot of the unions are bloated bureaucracies and not really what they were originally intended to be. But we talk about our country. Our country is a union, right? It's the United States. And I think that we can create more modern unions using crypto, and we can create products that maybe look like insurance on the surface, but really are unions in disguise. And in a few years, it might look like a retirement plan baked in with insurance, baked in with
special access to.
And what's the difference between that and us paying our taxes for benefits that maybe we don't really get or feel like we get properly because our government is failing us, right? Because as much as we pay into these things, we don't get as much back as we really wish we could. And maybe, at worst.
Historically, right? Unions have been unions by geography, right? It's been geographic because you didn't have the internet, you didn't have, decentralized value transfer. You had to be nice with the guy next to you or put a line between you two, So, but I mean, with social media and with like, the internet and with crypto, like you can make these sort of like communities or these sort of like unions with people wherever, as long as you have like a common interest, a common goal, or like common interest in supporting each other. It's crazy to think about, because for so long it's been tied to, North or South or whatever it is, but now
I'm trying to find in another tab, because you planted this seed in my mind, but just to kind of like blow people's mind, I have I just found a repost of an article that I originally wrote, and looks like the actual website, it was almost down, but I reposted it on Quora 10 years ago. This is the crazy thing. So I reposted it 10 years ago, and it was a few years old at that point when I reposted it 10 years ago. I'm trying to see if I can find the details and the numbers that I had put in there at the time, because what the idea was to talk about how ideas and communities and things could spread utilizing social media. And I think when I originally wrote the post, I was working at MySpace. So this must have been 15 to 18 years ago. I originally wrote the post talking about the power of social media. And I used the excuse of, it's a little sad, or maybe just an insight into my own being. But I used punk rock as the basis for this article, and I still always talk about how I'm a punk rocker on all of these shows and things like that. But what was interesting to me was that I used this analogy, right? When I grew up, I think you're probably younger. There were like 15 punk rock kids at my high school, right? And that were active at the school, and like 13 of the 15 were in the same like 4 bands that were like mixed up, that had like, you know, members and whatever. And you would know these people, and maybe if you knew a couple kids from the other local high schools or something, there were like 20, 30 kids in your community that were like the punk rock community at your school. And that was a big one for the average school, right? The kids with the mohawks, the kids with the funny jackets, the kids that were, you know, getting beat up, or, you know, were just the punk rock nerds, right? And then you turn 16, 17 years old, you get a driver's license, you're able to drive to the nearby high schools and things in a local show, and your 15, 20 people turns into, you know, 50, 60, maybe 100 people, right? And that's it. Maybe you would graduate high school and you'd be able to drive further away, lie to your parents, or, you know, become old enough to go stay in a different city, so you go see a show or something, and your community goes from 100 people to a few hundred people, right? Mm-hmm. You see the same people at every single show, every single time a band comes around town, and all of a sudden the internet pops up, and you start going like, there's, I don't know, 15,000 high schools in all of the United States, plus all the people who already graduated, who are in their 20s and 30s, who are going to these shows and things. And all of a sudden you go from, you know, 20 to 100 people to thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and then multiply that to the rest of the world. And all of a sudden, some random tiny punk band from Thousand Oaks, California, can have 20,000 fans on MySpace and a huge following in the Philippines, right? And you start, like, it was mind-blowing at the time that these kind of things would happen, because in everybody's mind, all of these markets, all of these things were niche, weird-ass things. Like, who the hell likes, you know, Southern California hardcore punk bands from Oxnard, California? Like, who knows what the term nardcore is? It's literally like the 80 people who were there, and then, you know, maybe 10 years later that multiplies to a few hundred people, but like, that's it. But all of a sudden you go, oh, but you know, that one band, Ill Repute, did a European tour, so they got to see all the kids all across Europe, and all of a sudden it's on the internet, and you can illegally download each other's music, and all of a sudden this is like this is a meaningful subculture where you could like start a record label that only focuses on nardcore bands and earn a living, right? Like, it doesn't make sense to the average person. It's like, you know, but that exists. Like, a very niche community becomes a big community and becomes a business, or could be a business.
And by being online, it's also like super discoverable by everyone, even if that's not your interest, right? You're able to see it, just like on Twitter.
What the fuck was that crazy ass thing Alon was talking about? You just Google it and find it.
Exactly. Yeah. Just like anything, like, I don't think, you know, not everybody's financial literate, or not everybody's super crypto literate, right? But when you go on Twitter and like you see these things from random people, like it becomes discoverable. Now you have like exposure bias. Now you're looking at it, and like, I think that's where the power of like a lot of this social media, especially like the early stuff, comes into play. Is like, you know, something super niche, or some sort of information that was like known by a small group of people that were super into it, now is just discoverable in a search, you know, or just like discoverable on your feed. And
it sounds ridiculous when I say it, right? Like, it sounds silly, but it's like extremely analogous. I had a call today with somebody. We're discussing early stage investing, and I talked to Tim Draper about this recently, and we talked about, you know, putting together a deck for a fund one time. And you talk to Tim, you talk to people, what you realize is that investors who used to, the only way they would get access to deals was investing in a VC fund, because the partner at the VC fund had the access to the deals. Now, investors in VC funds want access to the deals too. So they'll invest in the VC fund, but they want to directly invest also when they can, because they can find that data, they can access that data. When I was a kid, How did I discover a new punk band? I would look in the booklet I'd look at the which album had it? I think 8085 was the name of Bad Religion album. Had a bunch of flyers of their shows from the 1980s inside the album. I would look at the names of the band on those things, and then I'd go to the record store and I'd try to find a record for that band, and I'd buy it, not because I knew it was good or that it was good, but because there's this band called Social Distortion, or this band called Aggression, or this band called Black Flag. They played a show with Bad Religion. They're probably pretty good because Bad Religion is my favorite band. Maybe they're good too. You buy the album and be like, oh, fuck, that band sucks, but that one's awesome. And you would not know, right? And today I can go on Lunar Crush and I can get access to the information that used to only be available to institutions or to someone who made it their full-time job just to chase that information. And it's like extremely analogous because, you know, it sounds like this silly thing I'm bringing up, but like if everyone has the same information, you know, the institutions don't have a leg up on you. And if enough of us create a community, we could compete with those institutions, or we can create, you know, there's influencers who we trust who have that information, and you know, those influencers may not have the pedigree to raise the billions of dollars from endowment funds and things like that, right? But they might be way smarter than the dude who went to Stanford that does. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, you know, if we're paying attention, then there's some. Now I'm just ADDing the chat.
No, there's a lot of value.
Naming punk bands in the chat, and I can't. Yeah. But it's totally true, and you know, I think we probably didn't dive into the data as much as I would have liked to today. But you know, how do you feel about that, right? Like I feel like we're 100%, and you tell me if I'm right, but how, you know, do you think that we have just as much or maybe even the same amount as information? I was going to say more, but technically the institutions can also access the same stuff everyone else can. Do we have just as much information that the institutions have now? Like do we have, you know, like,
I think that there is close to, if not just as much information out there. You know, it's like the wisdom of the crowds where like you can have your expert opinion, but if you have everybody's opinion, including the experts and including some of the normies, like your information space is better. Your substrate for making decisions is making better. And I think at Lunar Crush, what we do is, I mean, we aggregate. There's probably like 500 million tweets a day that like get put out there. And and in order to aggregate that and to filter that out for something that's relevant to you is like no small feat. You know, there's no way in hell a single person could go out there and encompass all the information that's out there.
Well, you know what? And not just a single person, but I've you know, spent time with the Lunar Crush crew, seen how much you guys ingest, and then talk to people trying to sell me institutional products and realize they're not even ingesting enough of the data to be statistically significant, right? Like they don't have the processing power. They don't have the setup to deal with this new world, and their data is very incomplete, like in comparison.
Yeah, totally. No, the data pipeline is so well built. Like the plumbing is so optimized and efficient that like we're able to, you know, distill it down to like a couple tidbits of like something that is relevant to you. Or if you want to look at it from like a macro point of view, you can see, okay, you know, a certain asset or a certain person, they've gotten this much volume, you know, et cetera, like in this amount of time. Like to be able to slice and dice it like that, and to be able to memorialize it in a data structure that somebody could just easily go on our app and just like do a couple clicks and find it is a very beautiful thing. And I think, yeah, it's available to enterprise and it's available to retail too. And I think kind of like balancing out that leverage and balancing out that power is a big deal, because yeah, you want a community that's well informed. You want a community that's making good decisions, because, you know, good decisions are compounding, right? Just like bad decisions are. And so like as more people know the space, as more people are able to find out better what happened, get closer to the truth. I think that makes for like a better world, you know, a better decision making all around.
1,000%. I mean, we're sort of running out of time, but the idea of just everyone having access to data like is just so exciting and mind-blowing to me, right? Like it used to yeah, David Rankin, by the way, like he put Punko Rama in the chat, but like see David, I think you're about the same age as me, but that was life-changing for me because Punko Rama, if you don't know what that is, was Epitaph Records, which is like the biggest punk record label. It was actually the record label created by the guys in Bad Religion. So of course, like I'm a super fan. So that was like my jam. They put out these albums called Punko Rama, which was a compilation CD that had, you know, a song or two from every one of their bands on it, like the best songs from each band on it. So that's how you discovered new bands. You bought a CD that was like, it was a little cheaper usually, I think, if I remember correctly, than the average CD, but you'd have, you know, one Rancid song on it, a NoFX song on it, a Bouncing Souls song on it. And so you'd hear these bands that were all kind of sounded the same to someone who wasn't a punk nerd. And then you would discover new bands. It was pretty awesome.
I can't imagine you in a Mohawk, to be honest.
Oh, dude. Well, I only had a Mohawk one time. It lasted like 3 days. On the third day, I came back home from like staying at my girlfriend's house, who's now my wife, by the way. And I came home and my mom saw one look at me. I had like it was all shaved on the sides and like long here. I don't know if it was up or if it was just kind of dangling down because I was, you know, a dirty punk. But she had one look at me. She started crying. And like 3 minutes in, I was like, I'll be right back. I drove down the street to a Fantastic Sam's and I had them shave the Mohawk off and I came back home. Okay, it's not worth my mom crying over my hair. But I do remember her going, oh my God, I saw Doug. Doug was like one of my best friends growing up. She's like, I saw him with a boy. He had his hair like spikes like that. And I was like, that was Mike. You've met him. He's like one of my best friends. And she's like, I didn't even recognize him. All I could see was his hair, you know. It was so funny. And I would say that, you know, later on as she got to know him, Mike was probably one of her favorite people of all of my friends because he was probably the best, good, nicest kid. But she was, you know, pure judging on the Mohawk, right? But it was pretty funny. But going back to what the hell were we saying before the Punkorama?
Talking about the social media and how we can distill it down for everybody.
Yeah, I mean there was some point that now I'm totally not going to make because I'm forgetting. But the idea that everyone has access to this data, and you guys, you know, it used to be where you couldn't compete if you're an actively trading person or a fund that would actively trade. You couldn't compete back in the day unless you had a Bloomberg terminal, which is insanity today for people to think about because it was literally a like computer, a terminal, like an actual station that got you access to the Bloomberg data. Now I think you could get access to a Bloomberg terminal like virtually or something, but I won't say it's bullshit, but it's literally like a SaaS product, right?
Yeah, no, not everybody.
You had to have a physical device that you would put in your office, and like a trader, maybe one person, if you could afford multiple Bloomberg terminals, you were like a big operation, right? And it was kind of like the next step after, like, I remember people talking about like, oh, you're you know, their uncle's cousins, whatever, he had a seat on the stock exchange. You're like, what the fuck does that mean? And he's like, he literally had a seat on the stock exchange, like he could be there. And he was a person, like one of those guys, like in the videos where they're, you know, like throwing up a piece of paper in the air, like trying to buy a stock, right? But that's like the evolution of what's going on. And now we're at the point where like me wearing my, you know, fantasy football jersey, sitting in my room alone, have the same access as somebody who spends thousands and thousands of dollars a month on a Bloomberg terminal.
Totally.
Like the democratization of that data is really incredible and really exciting.
Yeah, I feel the same. We're making it accessible for everyone. You know, just same real-time institutional grade data at your fingertips.
Absolutely love it. And we will dive in to more of this stuff. But we're out of time now. Toby, give people a plug of where to follow you directly, but and then any specific Lunar Crush plug we should be giving out that I haven't yet given out.
Sure. Yeah. Lunar Crush. We're doing big things. Got a lot in the pipeline. We've got same thing with the Bloomy. We've got trading on our app as well, so you can execute your decisions straight from the app. 2,000 Lunar to get you to a pro level. Give you aggregated social information on 700 stocks, over 4,000 cryptocurrencies, NFTs, you name it. And we've got a couple of big announcements in the next week as well, so stay tuned.
Yeah.
Follow Lunar Crush on Twitter.
We might need to make next week like a Lunar Week also, just because of that.
Yeah, might have to just pop me on or one of the guys. And
we should just have the whole crew on, like everyone on the team who can be. Although, like, if enough people come on, then nobody's manning the machine. Although, don't the robots take care of that by now?
Yeah, we'll just get ChatGPT to.
That's right. I mean, I trust my. I don't know if you know this, but I think they need to re-add support for it, by the way. But there used to be the robot account, the Lunar Crush bot account on Twitter, where you could post things on Twitter and it would reply to you with like the data you asked for and stuff. And I had that bot and the alerts that were texted to me from Lunar Crush back in the day in my phone as Brobot. And I would get texts from my Brobot going like, Ethereum alt rank up 14% in the last hour or whatever, we've got
automated alerts now too. It's on Telegram. We'll text you or email you. Yeah, we've
by the way,
more too if you got any questions, like big community on there.
I'm constantly reminding people it's one of the simplest and easiest features of Lunar Crush. When you get the app on your phone, first of all, because you're gonna wish you had it, and then go to the bell in the upper right corner, set up alerts for anything you want, and play with the default ones. But like in a week or two, you're gonna start changing them and editing them. You can get alerts if a price of something moves a certain way.
Yep.
But you're going to get more meaningful alerts if you start like realizing, like, oh shit, social volume or social contributors, and you start creating alerts. That's like one of the most basic features of Lunar Crush. And I kind of forget because it's such a basic feature, like in my mind, but it's one of the most important ones.
Powerful ones for sure. Yeah. I have probably 20 alerts a day. Like
I got an alert while we were at the beginning, on the beginning of the show. I got, here we go. Lunar alt rank up. I can show you here. I'm going to leave only my Lunar alerts up. Like this is shit. It's all blurry. I should turn off the blur, but basically that's my whole phone with all Lunar alerts. But the top one was Lunar, the Lunar token alt rank went up, and it gave me an alert. But let's look at this. Bitcoin's back in the green.
And on top of that too, you can monitor your portfolio. So if you connect your wallet, we automatically track all your balances, any transactions that happen to it. So if you're like waiting on a trade or some, just anything happens with your connected wallets, like we'll send you an alert as well.
That's a really cool new feature. So I know a lot of people would monitor their Ethereum wallet on Xerion or something. But you can now do that on Lunar Crush across Ethereum wallets, EVM wallets like Polygon, Arbitrum, all the rest.
Yeah.
But also your Bitcoin wallet, your Stacks wallet, your Zilliqa wallet, like it's across all of them. And
it's a monitoring device, or if you want to use that, I keep thinking Life Alert, but I think that's the old people necklace, but it's like LifeLock, something were to happen or whatever, you'll get alerts for that as well. So
my brain went from I've fallen and I can't get up, but my brain said like, oops.
This is not that.
And then I went to I'm going to end on a really awesome high note and some funny thing for people to Google search. I have no idea if it's appropriate anymore, and it might actually be a little bit on the not okay side, but I'm going to say it anyway. Look up the Saturday Night Live sketch for "Oops, I Crapped My Pants." It was like an adult diaper commercial, like a fake diaper commercial called "Oops, I Crapped My Pants." But I wouldn't look at it from that perspective, but it will help you in that perspective. I look at it from the perspective of being able to monitor your portfolio and then get alerts without even signing up for them for things that are already in your portfolio, like XYZ just happened to your to this token you have in your wallet, and they're actionable alerts. It's really important. All right. All right, guys. Thank you so much, Toby. It was awesome having you. For everyone else watching, if you are watching on one of the streams, you go to blockchainbooze.io. You'll be able to turn on your camera in a minute there if you want. It'll redirect you to the DGH events site if you want to hang out with the community. Toby, thanks for joining us. We got to have you back. I think we might have to, I might scrap the plans for next week and we do another lunar event, because there's some cool stuff happening in the next week that we can't talk about yet, but you're all going to see. So make sure you follow Lunar Crush. And till next time, thanks, Toby.
It was a pleasure.
Hey.
See you.